Wow, these things are amazing. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Random Distractions home theater update. This will be my thoughts on the Arendal 1961 and 1723S speakers that I recently purchased. If you missed the unboxing, you can check that out here. But first, a little background. If you've been keeping up with my channel, you know that I've upgraded my home theater system in the living room for the past couple of years. One of the big ones was being the Anthem MRX 1140, and then purchasing a power amplifier for the first time, which was the Emotiva Basics A5. However, my old set of speakers, the Pioneer Andrew Jones that I looked up and purchased August of 2014, or 8 years ago, were ready for an upgrade. This led me to do some research on what speakers to get, and there were a lot of contenders. During this research, I came upon Arendal, and that was back in late 2021. But before then, I had never heard of them, let alone know how to say the name. I watched a couple of videos from the manufacturer to figure out how to say the name, but I also watched a couple of different videos from other YouTubers to see what they thought. What first drew me to Arendal was all the good things people were saying about them. It seemed like anybody that tried them out or tested them out loved the way that they sounded and the way that they looked. The look was also something that attracted me to them. My old set of speakers were starting to look a little bit dated with that wood look vinyl, and I really liked the modern minimalist look of the Arendals. The 1961 series is also small, so that would help with the wife acceptance factor. I don't have a dedicated theater room, so these would actually be living in our living room, so they not only needed to sound good, but look good as well. As I said, I heard about Arendal back in late of 2021, but I didn't actually make the purchase for them until July of 2022, and that's because I like to do a lot of research before I make a big purchase, especially as big as this one. So yeah, for me, they are pricey. It actually took me a while to start saving up, although I was kind of saving up while I was doing the research, and when I finally decided on going with the Arendals, I knew at least where I needed to be. But during my research, the other thing that stood out in regards to price was the value. I came across a lot of speakers that were definitely pricier than the Arendals, but they didn't really seem to provide that much more. And then of course the same was true with the lower price brands, is that they didn't seem to be able to compete with what the Arendals provided. So as I said, I started saving up for them, and originally I was going to go with just a full 1961 set of speakers, so the towers, the bookshelf speakers, and then the center channel. But before I actually did the purchase, I was starting to see a couple of videos and articles saying how important the center channel was, especially if you watch movies. And so and I mentioned this in the unboxing video, after putting that question out to the Arendal community, I actually received a couple of responses from the staff on there, and they pointed me to a couple of different things, and that kind of sealed the deal as far as going with the 1723S. And I also double-checked and triple-checked the size, at least what was being said on the website, to the available space that I had to make sure that it would fit. And as you saw in the previous video too, it barely fits, because that thing is really huge. As far as ordering the speakers from Arendal, my experience was great. They actually arrived a lot quicker than I expected them to, especially considering, you know, all of the delays in shipment stuff that you hear about. I had ordered them on a Thursday and received them the following Wednesday, and that included the weekend and a holiday, so I probably would have received them quicker than that if those things hadn't been going on. And of course, as you saw in the unboxing video, they were packaged really well. Looking at them for the first time, you know, pictures and video don't really do them justice, because they feel very well built and very solid, but they look good too. But they can look as good as anything else. The big question is, do they sound good? I actually noticed the sound when I started doing the audio calibration. So with the Anthem MRX 1140, you have Arc Genesis, and so it starts off with the front left, switches to the center, and then goes to the the right, and then the others. But when it did the switch from the front left to the center, I actually did a double take. I was like, wait, what? Because the transition is just so seamless. And to be honest, I thought my Pioneers did a really good job until I listened to this. So the timbre matching on these is just, again, seamless is the best word that I can come up with. Listening to actual content, because they are so seamless, when you're watching something and there's something that goes from the left side all the way to the right side, it's just transitions so well between it. Before with my Pioneers, it seemed like, okay, it's here, then it's here, then it's here, but with the Arendals, it just kind of goes from left to right. And it wasn't just the front stage. When things happened from, back to the front, it was also very seamless. Until I got these speakers, I didn't realize that I was missing out on that experience, and it just makes such a big difference when you're watching stuff. I actually had received a comment wondering, how well the 1723S center channel would work with the 1961 towers, and at least from my experience, I can tell you that they work great. It's honestly like having another 1961 tower right in the middle. The other thing I noticed when I was doing the calibration was when it does the measurements, the smoothness of the curve was actually much better than my old speakers as well. I think that's in part to why everything sounded just much fuller and with more presence. Not sure if that's also what helps the other thing that I noticed, or if it's because of going with the bigger center channel speaker, but voices are so much more intelligible and easier to hear. And to me, the voices feel much more realistic. The other thing I noticed is that when compared to my old set, I could go loud, but it would start to feel like it was getting way too loud, the sound was starting to break apart, or it sounded really harsh at certain points. And so I was just thinking, oh man, these things can get really loud. But now I'm wondering if maybe I was just pushing them to their limit. And the reason I say that is because with these speakers, I can go that loud as before and actually louder. And they don't feel like they're, about to break apart, and they're very composed. And so they still sound good at louder volumes. Actually, a few years ago, I had taken a sound tech course because I was helping our church run their soundboard. And one of the things that the teacher mentioned to me that kind of stuck with me is that if you get a system sounding right, people are not going to complain about how loud it is because it still sounds good. And similar in this case is like before, the Pioneers would get loud, but it wasn't sounding great, so I didn't really want to turn them up that loud. Whereas these, they can go louder and still sound good. It's also kind of hard to convey, but when I'm listening to the speakers, it feels like, they could take more power because they're getting this loud and they're just doing it effortlessly, like they're not struggling at all. So it feels like I could actually push more power to them than what I'm giving them. So needless to say, I couldn't be happier with purchasing the Arendal speakers. The system sounds fuller, the seamless transition between the speakers just makes everything more immersive when you're watching stuff, and then the vocals being much better than what they were before almost makes it unnecessary to put on the captions a lot of the times now. Movies and songs that I've heard before, they just sound so much better than what they have in the past. They have made a big improvement in the sound of my system, and they look good doing it too. And this is of course in my living room, so I can only imagine what they would be like in a dedicated theater space. But is there anything that I don't like? If you saw the unboxing video, I kind of struggled a little bit with the feet for the towers, and that's really because in the manual it just kind of has the words on how to install them, and in the manual it actually focused more on the spikes, which I was not using. I was using the rubber feet. So maybe if Arendal's listening, they could consider maybe putting just some small diagrams of how they go together, just to make sure that I was putting the washers correctly, which it wasn't really that hard. I think I'd still put them on right, but just something to kind of give you that, feeling of, oh, okay, yeah, this is correct. One thing I'm wondering is if I need to tow them in. The other night I was listening to some music and I had it in the 5.2 profile and switched it over to the 2.2 profile. Before with my Pioneers, the Phantom Center worked really well. I could hear vocals in the center. But with these, it seems a little bit off. And I'm not sure if I just need to listen to some more stuff and really get a feel for it, or if I do actually need to tow them in just a little bit. So that may be something that I'll follow up on in a future video. Although, and I know a lot of people will disagree, I actually don't mind listening to music in the multi-channel setting, especially if I'm in the main listening position, because it does just feel like you're in the middle of the band, and it just sounds really cool. Although even with the 2.2, stuff does seem to feel like it's coming like sometimes from behind you or even from the side, even though it's all coming from the front. And the only other thing is I am still evaluating whether I need to tilt the center channel just a little bit. So far everything sounds good, but I'll kind of keep thinking about that and maybe even try to tilt it a little bit and see if that makes a difference. Well, I hate to say it, but my Pioneer Andrew Jones speakers, as good as they were, unfortunately cannot compete with this Arendal system. Granted, they are almost 7 times the price, so they should be. If I'm being honest though, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to tell a difference. You know, they say that the return on investment for this kind of stuff comes pretty quickly, but I was hoping that with, you know, all the good reviews and everything that everybody was saying about them, that it would work out. And I'm glad to say that similar to my experience from going from a receiver to a dedicated amplifier, I'm glad that I was proven wrong, because I'm definitely enjoying movie watching and music listening so much more. Let me know if you have any questions about them. I did actually receive a question from somebody in regards to the bookshelf speakers, whether or not they had a thread at the bottom for securing to like a stand, and they don't. They actually have a keyhole on the back and then some threads on the back as well, but that's for the Arendal wall system, but no threads at the bottom. The stands that I use actually kind of hug them or squeeze together to hold them. They're the Video Secure, I think is what they're called, and they're from Amazon. I got them also about the same time that I got my Pioneer speaker, so that's been about 8 years ago now, but I'm pretty sure that they have them on Amazon. I did notice though that because the Arendals are a little bit heavier than the Pioneers, it doesn't seem to wobble as much as what they used to with the on the stand. And if you're familiar with the Pioneers, they actually kind of taper towards the back, and these are square, so it actually tightens them a little bit better. Well, that is all that I have for this video. I would definitely appreciate a like, of course, on this one, and make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when the next one drops. But until then, I hope you have a good one.